Clerk Dan Healy and Alderman Klee will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance, please.
Alderman O'Brien. Alderwoman Timmons.
Here.
Alderman Moran.
Present.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Here.
Alderman Govea.
Here.
Alderman Lopez. Alderman Sullivan.
Here.
Alderman Clemmons. Alderman Sennett.
Here.
Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderman Tebow.
Here.
Alderman Klee.
Here.
Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Here.
Alderman Wilshire.
I'm here.
12 present, 3 absent.
Thank you. Also joining us this evening is Corporation Counsel Steve Bolton and Deputy Corporation Counsel Celia Leonard. No remarks by the mayor. We'll go right down to recognition period.
None.
Reading minutes of previous meetings. There being no objection, I'll declare the minutes of the Special Board of Aldermen meetings of November 25th and November 26th, 2024 be accepted, placed on file, and the reading suspended. And for the record, Alderman Clemmons has just joined us at 7:31. Communications requiring only procedural actions and written reports from liaisons.
Communication has been received from Lisa Photo, Director of Public Works, regarding referrals from Board of Aldermen Resolutions R-24-107 and R-24-111. Communication has been received from Alderman John Sullivan regarding Resolution R-24-109, and communication has been received from Liz Hannum, Economic Development Director, regarding Resolution R-24-109.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communications and place them on file. Period for public comment relative to items expected to be acted upon this evening. We have 3 people that have signed up. Mike Serrato.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Madam President and Board, for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is regarding R-24-109. My name is Mike Serrato, and I've been a proud property and business owner in downtown Nashua now for over 40 years. I currently own both 4 Water Street and 60 Main Street, and my wealth management practice, TCG Wealth Management, is located on the 2nd floor of 4 Water Street. To give you a little bit more background, I've been an active supporter of the city and the city's riverfront project from the very beginning, and I'm actually one of the original TIF members. I believe this is truly a transformative project. I mean, this is going to boost local commerce. This is going to benefit our community for decades to come. So I'm all in behind it. As you also know, the project requires an easement for a portion of my property on the boardwalk. Now, while I fully support the project, because of some miscommunication, construction began prior to the city securing that required easement. Now, although the easement is overdue, I do not feel going the eminent domain route is necessary, as I think the city and I can work things out. I am prepared and I intend to give the city the easement. That's not an issue, as long as we can work out an agreement that's fair to all concerned. And the new, not new, but you're having an appraisal done, which I think is going to go a long way in making this work. It's important to remember that as a strong advocate for this project, I'm committed to seeing it succeed. I'm not here to obstruct things or to get in the way. I'm here to resolve the matter swiftly and fairly. So with that, I think we can work together and get this done. Now, when you're looking at a recent letter from Liz to Donna Graham, which you just mentioned, that was entered into for this meeting, dated 12/6. I'm sorry.
1 minute.
Liz's last statement basically said, I'm paraphrasing now, we still intend to build a new patio and will adhere to a third-party assessment of what the rights are worth. So if the appraisal that's being done now is fair, and I have no reason to believe it's not. I've met with the appraiser a couple times. I've walked him through the building and around the building, so I know what his process is. I'm
30
prepared to accept it.
seconds.
So if the city is prepared to accept the appraisal, and I am as well, why even initiate the eminent domain? Let's wait a couple weeks for the appraisal to come back and go from there. So with all this in respect to time, I respectfully request that the board votes to table 24-109 in order for the city and I to resume our talks and work this out. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to continuing to be a big part of the community and the growth and success of downtown.
Thank you. Paul Johnson?
Good evening, Paula Johnson, 15 West Bourne Drive. I'm going to talk about R-24-115 that has to do with the commuter rail feasibility study project. I'm sad that the mayor's not here again tonight to hear this. But I will say, Alderman Wilshire, Attorney Bolton, you were on the board with me when R-04-74 was written under Bernie Streeter. We remember good old Mayor Bernie Streeter. Some of us liked him, some of us didn't. We worked and tried to work together. And this had to do with support for the commuter rail. And there was a resolution that was written, whereas $4.165 million of federal New Start funds committed to the commuter rail service in New Hampshire will lapse on September 30th, 2024. We did get that money, if I remember correctly. We just never did anything with that money. So we did talk about commuter rail. That was back in 2004. And here's a stack of everything that I've done looking at commuter rail. This thing is a boondoggle that's going to cost the taxpayers money. If anybody thinks this is free government money, think again. Because as I went through some of the paperwork with the New Hampshire, Nashua Manchester Capital Corridor Study, we're talking about $225,000 for a feasibility study. Then we're talking about $125,000 miscellaneous construction projects with this. And it says here very clearly in this study that we are going to have to take out bonding to pay for our portion, and so is Manchester. How much more do you want us to pay? You're bleeding us taxpayers dry here, especially us, we're not elderly, senior citizens here. And this study, you know, Mayor Lozo had it, a study. Chris Williams did a study on it.
1 minute.
Commuter rail studies. I mean, it's been study after study after study. We're not bringing people into the city for jobs. We're taking people out of New Hampshire to go to Massachusetts. And I, for one, and I'm going to bet most of the community, does not want our money spent on any of this stuff anymore. Where is the priority in this city? We have a study for $325,000 for deferred maintenance. For the school district, we have to bring in consultants that should be done in-house
30
here
seconds.
versus costing us money. And I'm going to say something here also. This 3-minute rule is disgusting. Maybe all of you on this board should have a 3-minute rule. Thank you.
Gloria Delano?
Good
Good evening, Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I'm going to speak about a number of things, and I'm going to have to go auctioneer style. With regard to the eminent domain task here that you're considering, I would really like you to consider tabling that and giving this gentleman and the city an opportunity to work and compromise. I think it's a much better solution than an eminent domain action. You know, that's very aggressive. You're using eminent domain, I think, for a purpose that's much more leisurely. You have a gentleman that's been invested in downtown who seems to be very supportive of the task. I questioned when I heard the city report that they had been working with him for 4 years and couldn't come to an agreement. I doubted that. The project wasn't approved until 3 years ago. And they obviously didn't get the easement. I was aware of that. So please consider getting that appraisal back, which you've already or will be voting on or was voted on for the $8,000 for the company to do the appraisal. Get that back and let the parties meet and confer peaceably and professionally before you take such a harsh action. Thank you. And also, I would like to say, with regard to the railroad, I can only express that I am very concerned. There's a lot of spending here. I felt the way the $45 million was added to the budget was just not right. We formed an ad hoc debt committee to, come up with a 5-year plan. We come up with a 5-year plan prioritizing. The 2024 portion gets approved in the budget, and then all of a sudden, 4 months later, we've got this $45 million crisis of spending that had to be approved by you folks. And I feel like there was a lack of transparency there. There's some other underlying issues here regarding the budget and spending that was not revealed to the public fully.
1 minute.
And, I expect more from my government in understanding what that is. Even I'm really disappointed that the escrow money that's going back to projects was not returned to the taxpayers. These tax bills are coming out next week, and the budget increase is over 6%. Despite what the city's saying it was 4, it is not, and 7 people stood up at the budget hearing and addressed that the calculation was
30
not
seconds.
correct. 7 different people, and a few aldermen agreed. But as a group, nobody addressed that. What you bought down on that percentage is only 1%. So anyone whose property assessment went up more than 13% is going to see an increase. And that's like 90% of the properties. I think people are going to be very surprised right before Christmas when they get their tax bills. And some of these people are going to see well over $1,000 increase. So please be sensitive to that. Thank you.
Communications requiring final approval?
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donchis regarding tax increment finance development program, Bergeron commercial appraisal.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve a contract for appraisal services to estimate just compensation for the proposed partial taking on property located at 4 Water Street with Bergeron Commercial in the amount of $9,800. Funding will be through Department 183 Economic Development Fund 70500 Project Contingencies.
You've heard the motion. Excuse me. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Oh, Alderman Jettie.
So my question is, it sounds like this appraisal has already started. So is that true? He's already been working, but he doesn't have a contract yet? Is that correct?
I'm not aware.
Proceed forward. No, this is being done under the Riverwalk project, where the manager can sign contracts, but then it needs to come back to the board. It's more fully explained in Director Hannum's memorandum to the board, the process. So the contract has been signed. It's under $10,000. So Attorney Bolton, as a director, has authority under the ordinances to sign that. He has. The work is being done. We do not pay, however, until we receive the final product, which I heard from Mr. Bergeron today will be about mid-January.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Oh, and for the record, Alderman Lopez joined us at 7:40.
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donchis regarding multi-year contract award, Swiftly, Inc.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to accept, place on file, and award a multi-year contract with Swiftly, Inc. for real-time bus software for scheduling, dispatching, GTFS data, and reporting for fixed route bus services in the amount not to exceed $144,266. Funds will be through Department 186 Transportation, Fund 81 Capital Outlay / Improvements.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
That motion carries.
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donchis regarding multi-year contract award, Spare Labs, Inc.
Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam President. I motion to accept, place on file, and award a multi-year contract with Spare Labs Incorporated for demand response paratransit, demanding dispatch and reporting software using a federal grant and local match funds in the amount of $112,577. Funding will be through Department 186 Transportation, Fund 81-Capital Outlay Improvements. By roll call, please.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on the motion?
Do we need roll call in this one? No, sorry.
Typo.
I apologize.
No, my error. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
That motion carries. Petitions,
None.
nominations, appointments, and elections.
Board of Health, term to expire December 31st, 2025. And these are candidates: Henry J. Och, 77 Northeastern Boulevard, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03062. Francis Nutter Upham, 3 Fulton Street, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03060. Wanda Lanigan, 48 Donovan Court, Merrimack, New Hampshire, 03054.
Alderman Moran, did you?
Thank you, Madam President. Not an objection, just a statement. I just want to identify that these 3 candidates are amazing candidates that will be going for this open position, and I am very happy and thankful to see so many people of interest in the community reach out to fill that one open seat, and I look forward to them going to administrative and personnel.
And then also, just to clarify, those are appointments by the Board of Aldermen candidates, and now following appointments by the mayor. Conservation Commission, Sherry Dutsey, reappointment, term to expire January 1st, 2028. 18 Swart Terrace, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03064. Environment and Energy Committee, Adrian George, reappointment, term to expire October 31st, 2027, 7 Indian Fern Drive, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03062. Michael Turcott, reappointment, term to expire January 7th, 2028, 385 Woodcrest Court, Manchester, New Hampshire, 03109.
There being no objection, I will accept the appointments as read and refer them to the Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee. Reports of committees. There being no objection, I'll declare the report of the November 19th, 2024 Planning and Economic Development Committee be accepted and placed on file. There being no objection, I will declare the report of the November 20th, 2024 Finance Committee be accepted and placed on file. There being no objection, I'll declare the report of the November 25th, 2024 Budget Review Committee be accepted and placed on file. Confirmation of mayor's appointments.
Business and Industrial Development Authority.
There being no objection, I will confirm the new appointment of John Zimba, 24 Boxwood Road, Bedford, to the Business and Industrial Development Authority with the term to expire November 26, 2027. Is Mr. Zimba here? Come forward, please, for the oath of office. You can come right up here to the attorney's desk.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a member of the Business and Industrial Development Authority of the City of Nashua, according to the best of your ability and agreeably to the rules and regulations of the city charter and the Constitution and laws of the state of New Hampshire, so help you God?
I do, I will.
Thank you.
Cable Television Advisory Board.
There being no objection, I will confirm the reappointment of Andrew Cernata, 547 Amherst Street, Suite 300, Nashua, to the Cable Advisory Board with a term to expire January 1st, 2027. Is Mr. Cernata here this evening? He will be sworn in at a later date.
Conservation Commission.
There being no objection, I will confirm the reappointments of Gloria McCarthy, 65 Musket Drive, Nashua, with a term to expire September 30, 2027. Brandon Parati, 14 Lockmere Lane, Nashua, with a term to expire December 31st, 2027. And member to alternate Megan Cook, 24 Harris Road, Nashua, with a term to expire December 31st, 2027, to the Conservation Commission. I know that Ms. McCarthy is here, and I don't know if Brandon or Megan are here. So whoever's here, please come forward to take the oath of office.
Do you each raise your right hand? Do you each solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all of the duties incumbent upon you as members of the Conservation Commission of the City of Nashua, according to the best of your abilities, and agreeably to the rules and regulations of the city charter and the Constitution and laws of the state of New Hampshire, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Cultural Connections.
There being no objection, I'll confirm the reappointment of Elizabeth Berry, 505 Amherst Street, Nashua, and the new appointment of Shanglan Zhu, 25 Middle Dunstable Road, Nashua, to the Cultural Connection Committee, both with terms to expire September 30th, 2027. If those individuals will please come forward to have the oath of office.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all of the duties incumbent upon you as a member of the Cultural Connections Committee of the City of Nashua, according to the best of your abilities and agreeably to the rules and regulations of the city charter and the Constitution and laws of the state of New Hampshire, so help you God? Thank you.
Thank you.
Environment and Energy Committee.
There being no objection, I will confirm the reappointment of Arden Anita Calla, 15 Taylor Street, Nashua, to the Environment and Energy Committee with a term to expire March 31st, 2027. Is Arden here this evening? Arden will be sworn in at a later date.
Greeley Park Advisory Committee.
There being no objection, I will confirm the new appointments of Vicki Donchis, 4 Rockland Street, Nashua, and Annalisa Law, 78 Concord Street, Nashua, to the Greeley Park Advisory Committee, both with terms to expire November 12, 2027. I don't see either of them in the audience. They will both be sworn in at a later date.
Nashua Arts Commission.
There being no objection, I will confirm the reappointment of Tina Cassidy, 12 Newcastle Drive, number 10, Nashua, to the Nashua Arts Commission with a term to expire September 1st, 2027. Is Tina here this evening? No, she will be sworn in at a later date.
Zoning Board of Adjustment.
There being no objection, I'll confirm the reappointment of John Paul Bosher, 8 Fox Meadow Road, Nashua, to the Zoning Board of Adjustment with a term to expire September 11th, 2027. Is John Paul Bosher here this evening? They will be sworn in at a later date. Unfinished business resolutions.
Second reading of R-24-106, authorizing the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed $15 million for renovations to the 2 parking garage.
Alderman Tebow.
I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-24-106 by roll call pursuant to Charter Section 49. Thank you, Madam President.
Motion is for final passage by roll call. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Moran.
Is this one of those 2/3 votes of present, or through you to a corporation council?
2/3 of those present and voting.
So that would mean it needs to have, what, 9 to pass?
12 of you?
There are 14 of us.
14.
14 now.
We need 10.
2/3, you need 10.
10, okay, all right.
Anything further? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
No.
Alderman Thibodeau.
No.
Alderman Govea.
No.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
No.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
10 yeas, 4 nays.
That motion carries, and Resolution 24-106 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of R-24-107, authorizing the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed $2,142,351 for the purchase of 1 compactor and 2 refuse trucks for the solid waste department, 4 Hills landfill.
Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-24-107 by roll call pursuant to Charter Section 49.
You've heard the motion. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam President. I do intend to support this tonight. I didn't speak to the last resolution, but this one here, while it is bonded debt, it is under the that solid waste, which is essentially an enterprise account. Obviously, they need this equipment in order to maintain the landfill to the standards that we expect here in the city. So I will be supporting this, even though it is bonded debt, and will, affect further spending down the road. Thank you.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. I, too, will be supporting this because I do believe that this will directly impact the benefit of the working-class citizens of the city and that make the jobs easier for the folks at DPW. And this, if we're going to take on debt, this is a good one to take on.
Further discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
14 yeas, 0 nays.
That motion carries, and Resolution 24-108 is declared duly adopted.
107. 107.
Oh, I'm sorry. 107 is duly adopted.
Second reading of R-24-108, relative to the supplemental appropriation of $3,500,000 of assigned fund balance into capital project activity police facilities improvements.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-24-108 by roll call pursuant to Charter Section 49. And could I speak to it briefly?
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you. There's a few points I wanted to bring out here. First of all, about the appropriation. Originally, during the ad hoc meetings that were held back over the spring, this originally was supposed to be a bonded program. Hats off to the administration for moving this from a bonded program into a program that's going to be paid via cash. I think that's really important because what happens is once you pay for it out of these funds, it doesn't show up again. It's paid for. It's a $3.5 million project. When you bond it, it adds to the cost, obviously, because you have interest on that bond. So this gets built. It rehabs that building over on Riverside Drive, which has fallen into disrepair, so I think this is really good.
for the building, for the people. I said this during the Budget Committee, but I'll say it again to the full board. We have an excellent police department. The job of a police officer has changed. The purpose of this building is to help train these officers for the job that has now become what it is in 2024. A great staff raises your floor. Training raises the ceiling on what a great team can do. So I think this is money well spent, not only for the building, but for the people. Thank you.
Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Madam President. I have to agree with my colleague from Ward 9, and I think this is great that we're able to pay cash for this. At first, when we talked about making this a bonded project, given the kind of the situation we've been in as a city, I feel this is much more palatable as paying cash for it. So I'm in full support and look forward to seeing this get done.
Further discussion, Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam President. I would have supported this whether it was bond or cash because our police department deserves it.
Anyone else? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
14 yeas, 0 nays.
That motion carries, and Resolution 24-108 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of R-24-109, authorizing acquisition by eminent domain or other means of approximately 2,015 square feet over and in the Nashua River located next to 4 Water Street to be used for the Riverwalk.
Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I motion for final passage of R-24-109.
Motion is for final passage. Is there a discussion? Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not going to stifle debate. However, I won't support this. I agree with the gentleman who owns the property that we should table this and let time for the appraisal to come back, and hopefully the city can work something out. His cards are on the table. He came here tonight asking us to do that. There's no more mystery here. So if we take him at his word, they should be able to come to an agreement, and I believe that the best thing to do would be for us to hold this.
Okay, I'm going to ask Director Sullivan or Director Cummings, is this time sensitive? Okay. Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't disagree with my colleague. I've had time to think about it, and the truth is, I do wish that the gentleman who had spoken had come to the public hearing at that time and had spoken, basically had said what he had said then. I think at that point, we probably would have tabled it. We probably would have not gotten to this point. We probably would have had a little bit more robust conversation, and we wouldn't be sitting here at the full board. It might have given us a little bit more time to have pushed that conversation, and it would have given us another week to have done this. I hate the idea that we're now delaying this. I have spoken to Director Hannum. I think that the city has done a lot of work. I think that unlike what, I don't want to say that anybody's misleading things, but I have some anxiety about conversations that have been had. I don't know who to believe. This is a he said, she said type of thing. Seeing that it's not sensitive, I don't see that there's any problem with kind of putting it off a little bit to see what the appraiser has to say. But I can say that Director Hannum did say to me that the $40,000 that's being offered to do the patio is, at this point, what she feels that probably the appraisal would come back at. is kind of at the $40,000, plus what the cost of the appraisal is, not $40,000 plus $50,000 for the parking, which is kind of what is being put on the table now. So we're looking at, if we go with the offer that's being put at the table, we're kind of looking at $90,000. And I have a little bit of an issue with $90,000 for something that's going into the water. So I'm not sure that I would want to go that far for $90,000. And I also want to say something here. One of the conversations that I've had when we talk about this particular thing, and we all have to think about this, one of the offers that I've heard is talk about giving up revenue for parking. When we talk about giving up revenue, it's not just something that's unrealized. Revenue is taking money from our parking enforcement. And one of the things that we do is we talk parking enforcement is something that's supposed to be self-sustaining. So we're taking revenue away from parking enforcement. We're kind of handicapping our parking enforcement. We're saying to them, you can't hire. We're saying that you can't sustain yourself. So if we take revenue away from parking enforcement, we need to put it back from general funds. Just keep that in mind. So when we're cutting these deals of taking revenue away from parking enforcement, we better supplement it back to them. So I just want to put that on the table. Thank you.
Alderman Moran?
Thank you, Madam President. I think the city administration is a little heavy-handed to use eminent domain in such a very small amount of money disagreement. If this is like making way for like the Veterans Highway, that's one thing. This is talking about, what, 2,000 square feet. Even if we table this later, if I ever came back, I would always vote no on it. But I think it's just way too heavy-handed to bring this forth. And for that, I will stifle debate and make a motion to table.
Motion is to table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. That motion carries, and Resolution 24-109 is tabled.
Second reading of R-24-113, relative to the acceptance of $6 million of anticipated grant funds and to accept and appropriate an additional $1,700,000 of unanticipated grant funds for a lead-based paint hazard reduction grant from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-24-113 by roll call pursuant to Charter Section 49.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes, I would like to know the buildings, the homes, whatever this intended, the houses, the apartments, whatever this money is intended to be used on, if those are city-owned properties or if they're privately owned.
No, they are privately owned properties. And the city's done a lot of lead abatement through this program. Anyone else? Seeing none, would the clerk call the roll?
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
No.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
13 yeas, 1 nay.
That motion carries, and Resolution 24-113 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of R-24-114, amended relative to the acceptance and appropriation of an unanticipated donation for the field replacement at Stellos Stadium.
Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to amend R-24-114 by replacing it with the goldenrod copy of recommended amendments made at the Budget Review Committee, and I'd like to briefly speak to that.
Alderman Senate.
No, this is a very simple amendment that was proposed by my colleague in Ward 3, Alderman Clee. What this simply does is ensures that the $200,000 gift that we are accepting is counted as part of the $1,500,000 that we've already approved for the repairs at Stellos, and does not go in addition to it, so it holds us to our $1.5 million budget on that project.
You've heard the motion. Further discussion, Alderman Jettie.
Thank you. So, I don't know what good this does, but, for the record, I just want to say that, when this came before us, the main idea of repairing the field came before us, I thought the majority of the board had expressed its desire that the so-called field cover not be included. So just to remind everyone, during that discussion, the field cover, even though it appeared in the motion, was not part of the estimated cost. At the time, I don't know if we now know, but at the time, we didn't know how much this field cover would cost, but it was projected to be quite expensive. And the sole purpose of the field cover was to cover the field. This is the artificial turf at Stellos, to cover it so the two high schools could have their graduation there, because they didn't want chairs to be put on the field that would increase the wear or probably damage the artificial surface. So, the proposal was to purchase a field cover to protect the field for those two events. And, I thought at the committee and at the full board, I thought we expressed I thought the majority expressed their intention that we should not purchase this field cover. But, and there was an effort to remove that language, but for fear of delaying the project, and for fear that removing that language may have caused the necessity for another public hearing and delaying the project, we decided to not remove that language, but we were assured that we were not buying a field cover. And so now this resolution which is accepting the generous donation of the Stellos family of $200,000 towards the replacement of the field cover, was written to include the language of not only replacing the synthetic surface at Stellos, but acquiring a protective field cover. And again, it was left in there because of the fear that that would cause the necessity for another public hearing. And so I just want us to, even though it's in the resolution, I just want us to remember that we don't want that protective field cover. And we've been assured that we're not getting a field cover, and I hope that remains to be the case. But I want the public to know that, as uncomfortable as I am, having language that says acquiring a protective field cover, and then saying, well, no, we're crossing our fingers, we don't really mean that. I don't want to delay this project. I don't want any kind of a controversy to harm the wonderful gesture of the Stellos family. So I am allowing this to go through, but I want everybody to know I don't like it. And I wish in the future we not put words in resolutions that we don't want to be there. Thank you.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you. My previous colleague expressed what I was going to say as well, that I was feeling a little bit uncomfortable that the protective cover is still there I'm appreciative of the money, but I would like to see us be more thoughtful about how we write legislation in the future. And I see that Attorney Bolton wants to speak.
Attorney Bolton.
The legal department wrote the resolution the way we were asked to write it. And Alderwoman Clee contacted us about an amendment, which is what is before you, the amendment, to make sure that it was part of the 1.5 million, not in addition to the 1.5 million. And we prepared that at her request. No one contacted me or anyone else in my office about the field turf cover. If anyone had, we would have been happy to write any resolution or amendment that we were asked to write.
Alderman Clemmons?
I'm all set, thank you.
Alderman Dowd?
Yeah, I just want to state for the record a couple things. The field cover was never, ever in the budget. We did an examination of how much it would cost. It was $100,000+ for each installation, or $400,000 to buy it, plus other fees to build a building to store it, and the cost of installing it. And so the field cover is not in the budget. The 1.5 million is more than adequate to do all the things we have in our budget for the stadium. I have no problem with the amendment. Also, if you use chairs on the field, it voids the warranty of the field, and that's significant. So there are no chairs to be set up on the field, so they'll have to find an alternate way to have graduation. It's not part of this project. And the project has already started. It would be much further along if the weather had cooperated a little bit, but they were working on it today. And it's due to be completed before the 21st of December, and the field will be in place.
Alderman Lopez?
I just wanted to offer, for what it's worth, to the board, as one of the members of the Board of Aldermen on the Board of Joint Special School Building Committee, I wouldn't vote to approve something that this board had so clearly stated it didn't want, without insisting that the board be briefed, that people, have it described. And again, only one of multiple members, but I would imagine most of us, if suddenly a cover were to fall out of the sky and be available, we still would be like, okay, but you want this, right? And I think, given what my colleague previously stated, where a chair on the field will now void the warranty, I think that's something the school district is going to have to make alternate plans about.
Alderman Kelly?
Thank you. Through your Corporation Council, we were advised when we first ran this, we couldn't change it, it would trigger a new public hearing. Is that the same with this resolution in front of us?
I think you'd be well advised not to make further amendments at this point. When the resolution came on for a public hearing, knowing that Alderwoman Clee planned on this amendment, I asked Alderman Dowd, who was chairing the public hearing, to announce when this came up that there would be a potential amendment to clarify that it would be part of the 1.5 million and not in addition to the 1.5 million. He did that. So people who were here for the public hearing got a chance to speak on that. Had I been aware that someone wanted to make an amendment to delete the reference to the cover, similar announcement could have been made in advance of the public hearing. I was not aware. I don't know if Alderman Dowd was aware. In any event, no such announcement was made prior to the public hearing being conducted. At this point, we're not anticipating a football game in the next month. So if you wanted to make an amendment, schedule another public hearing, you probably have time to do that. I'm not sure that gains you anything. It may cause work to stop if the contractor is uncertain about the funding for the project, but all of that is up to the board.
Thank you.
Alderman Clee?
Thank you, Madam President. In all fairness to Attorney Bolton and legal counsel, what he has said is exactly what has happened. The moment that this resolution had come forward, probably before the ink was even dried on the resolution, I reached out to legal counsel and said what my intention was. I wanted to make sure that the resolution that had been written did in fact have clarity, that it was to, so that the public and everything was completely transparent, that the intention was that we would have, this would be not in addition to, but in fact would be 1.5 million, and as we had talked about in previous meetings. And they did exactly as I had asked, no more, no less. So I applaud them, I thank them for it, and I spoke nothing about the cover and so on. And as he stated, prior to the public hearing, Alderman, or Chairman Dowd, I should say, mentioned that this was coming forward, and he did exactly what was forward. So we did not have to do another public hearing and so on. So, I mean, if it's the will of this board to delay this and do it, so be it. I understand that. But I don't want our legal counsel or anybody to take any heat for this. They did exactly as I asked for, and we've been moving forward, so.
Alderman Tebow?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm sorry I didn't put my hand up earlier. I want to move the question, please.
Motion is to move the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion before us is to amend. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-24-114 as amended by roll call pursuant to Charter Section 49.
You've heard the motion. No further discussion. Would the clerk call the roll?
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
14 yeas, 0 nays.
That motion carries, and Resolution 24-114 is declared duly adopted as amended.
Second reading of R-24-115 relative to the supplemental appropriation of $5,245,000 of assigned fund balance into various capital improvement projects.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-24-115 by roll call pursuant to Charter Section 49.
You've heard the motion. Discussion. Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Madam President. At the Budget Review Committee, I voted to send this up to the full board for final approval, but I've had, and at that time, I spoke into the record my concerns regarding it, and since then, I've had a lot of time to stew on it and lose sleep over it, and I've come to the conclusion that, given what we have before us, I can't support this resolution. That's not an admonishment of any of the projects that are included here. I believe most of the projects here are worthy projects, but I stated then and I'll state now that I don't like the way that this was brought forward as a package deal. I know that there are others in this room that shared that concern with me, and we were educated on past examples of this. We were given 2 examples of escrow appropriations as well as allocations of ARPA funding. This is neither of those. This is not an escrow, and this is not a grant from the federal government. This is spending that we had to pass a $45 million exemption to even consider. And I think taking that leeway behooves us to maybe afford a bit of leeway into giving each of these consideration on their own. There's projects in here that we got very brief presentations on that I don't feel were complete. And without the proper consideration for each of these projects versus a bulk consideration all at once during a very late public meeting and hearing, I cannot support this as written. Thank you.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam President. So I think in fairness to the staff and who probably wanted this, and the mayor who sponsored this, my guess, and well, not a guess because I've talked to some of them, but was that in order to get this, rather than having 15 different public hearings, we could have one if it was under this umbrella. And because at a public hearing, there is no time clock, the public can come up, they can even ask questions. And so if they had the questions about various things, they could have brought that up at that time. We could have discussed that, had those questions answered. Same thing with any alderman on this board could have done the exact same thing. In furtherance of that, the motion or the project, if there was somebody with an objection to this, we could go through line by line and discuss each one and amend the ordinance, and the budget committee could have done that. We could do it here at this board. So I think the opportunity to kind of have what, and this is and this is, now I was not at that committee meeting, so I can't speak to, I saw bits and pieces of it, but I cannot speak to any alderman's comfortability of whether or not the questions were answered to each individual project. And I will take my colleague's word that the presentations were lacking. And I will take him at his word on that, because I've been to other committee meetings where I have felt the same way about different pieces of legislation. So with all of that said, I don't think you throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that we might be able to salvage this in a way that will allow it to move forward without with having a robust discussion about each item that every member wants to have. So my suggestion would be to re-refer it back to the Budget Committee and have those discussions on each individual project. And if that's the case, amend it and have your votes on whether or not you want to, amend this or not. Then when it's amended, you can have another public hearing. And that can be on the amended project. So that would be my recommendation. I understand the frustrations. I do, trust me, I get it. But I don't think that this was done in a way, I think it's basically a matter of opinion, it's a matter of approach, right? So it's not, oh, we're gonna throw everything in and jam it through. I don't think that's what was being done here. And that's of course my opinion. So anyway, that would be my suggestion to kind of allay people's concerns.
Alderman Tebow?
Thank you, Madam President. I mean, I was at the meeting. I thought the presentations were fine. I thought that, one of our biggest complaints lately is the city departments aren't here to answer questions. They were there for that meeting because they all gave presentations for the most part. I think what this bill comes down to is some people may think it's important to, demolish the stone house, and other people want to make the fish ladder happen. So it's picking and choosing what's important to each person here. And I think most of these projects, if not all of them, are, I think, worthy projects. The HVAC in this building needs to happen. They're down to one boiler. I see Alderman Govea shaking his head because you probably know that from having people work here that you know. But I think that's important. I think we need to act on that sooner than later. So I was planning on supporting this 100%. None of this stuff, makes me too worried. I did have a question, and I'd like to direct it through the president to either Director Sullivan or Director Cummings, probably Director Sullivan, about the rail study, because it came up in public comment. I would like to know the difference between what the feasibility study is currently that we're looking for spending here, or spending the money on, to the ones that have happened previously. And I know, I think the person that spoke had said Nashua to Manchester. We're looking for a Nashua first approach and not necessarily looking to go to Manchester. But I'd like to know the difference between what's been done in the past. Why is what we're doing now different?
Director Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alderman Tebow, you summarized it right there with your answer. The scope that's been underway, let's refer first to the first $75,000 that this board authorized that's currently been underway through our work with AECOM. That was the first effort of its kind to look at commuter rail extension to the city of Nashua only, not looking at an extension to the city of Manchester, not looking to an extension to the Manchester Airport, and not looking at an extension to the city of Concord, which has been long part of the Capital Corridor in its entirety. The comments before made by the public are absolutely accurate. There have been several iterations and considerations of commuter rail extension into the state of New Hampshire, but this is the first time that a state line extension only has been contemplated. And so I'm not going to get into a summary of the entire project, but the work to date has been agency coordination. It's been discussion with FTA, MBTA about this project and its feasibility. One thing I want to point out is that the work to date has been a very rough look at a proportional analysis of whether the extension to the city of Nashua could be financially viable and from a ridership perspective viable. The $225,000 that's included within the request, that's included within this legislation, is detailed updates to the cost estimates, the operations and maintenance estimates, and the ridership. And I don't want to stand here and lobby because I think I'm extending your question beyond what it was, but this is work that has never been done before. It was not done as part of the 2023 work, 2022 work that NHDOT did. That was focused on a longer extension, not this Nashua first option that we believe is a more viable project.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All set, Alderman Tebow?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Do we have someone? Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam President. I was really back and forth on this. I supported it in committee, then I thought about it, and then all I kept thinking about over the weekend in preparation of this meeting is that our approved budget was $456 million. And then we approved to exempt money to buy us more space under the cap. But that, while we exempted it, it doesn't go away. It's still there. So the $15 million that we appropriated earlier tonight, that gets added to it. $1 million a year gets added to the general fund. That's what affects the tax rate. This, little steps, affects the tax rate. It raises that level. So whatever the administration goes back to all of their departments and says, okay, and I'm just picking a number, your guidance is to raise your budget 4%. That's on top of what we did. And my concern is that level just keeps going higher and higher. And while this is great that all of these, I think all of these projects are worthy, 100%. I love the fact that they were all in cash, no bonds. However, if they're that important, and we're now in December, and we're 6 months to the close of the budget, put them in the fiscal 2026 budget, and let's do them then. Let's budget it. Let's do the hearings, let's do it the right way, and we'll go in that direction. So I'm not going to support this.
Alderman Moran, then Alderman Gavea.
Thank you, Madam President. I think if it went back to budget and then it came back to us with the next meetings the day after Christmas, then you risk maybe even less people here, and the majority vote to get it through may not be there at all. It seems like it might be teetering today. So with that said, instead of bringing it back to the budget, I would like to make a motion to amend and strike the rail study and remove it from the amendment. If there are other things in this package that you might like to see it through. Maybe that's, some things need to be cut in order to get a 2/3 vote tonight.
Okay. So you've heard the motion to cut the rail study.
By roll call, please.
Discussion on that motion. Alderwoman Kelly.
I will not be supporting this. The commuter rails is something that has been, viability has been talked about for many, many years. And the reason we keep having to study it is because things change while we continue to study it. And we keep kicking it down the road. Nashua's an incredible city. There is the opportunity to bring this to Nashua and then make it more viable for the rest of the state. And we hear over and over again that the people in New Hampshire and in Nashua want this. It's low investment for an incredible amount of information about how this can be viable for us. So I will not be supporting this.
Alderman Dowd?
Yeah, before that motion came up, I was going to suggest that perhaps if there are elements of these 14 items that people don't like, they could make a similar motion to delete it and see where people stand on each one of these. Otherwise, we're going to have 14 public hearings. This is going to get delayed and delayed and delayed. And some of these things will probably get more expensive if we keep doing that. So if there are particular things that people don't like, do the same thing that Alderman Moran's doing. Make a motion to delete it and see where the rest of the board stands.
Alderman Clee?
Thank you, Madam President. I agree with my colleague at large. I will not support removing rail, and the reason for that is, the reason for continuing this study is one of the key elements of this is to find out whether or not we can get support from Massachusetts and so on as to whether or not they're willing to kick in more for the continuation of this rail. And I think this rail is important. I don't think this is just a boondoggle as what's been put forward. We're looking at $225,000. In this $5.2 million, I know we can nitpick and pull this out and pull that out. I know my colleague who made this motion talked about, killing the $1.3 million for the Greeley Park, whether it was meant in jest or reality. It was said at a previous meeting. So this particular thing, rail is very important. I think it is important for Nashua, and we've been kicking this down. I think this $225,000 is important, so I will not support removing it. Thank you.
Alderman Govea?
I'm all set.
Alderman Jettie?
Thank you. So, $225,000 is peanuts. When we're talking about, bringing commuter rail, that's going to cost, millions, if not more. And so, under the, some people have said to me, and I can't really argue with them, given what happened at this most recent presidential election, the chances of our, being able to go forward with this project in the next 4 years is pretty slim. But if we don't spend this $225,000 now to put us in a position where if things change in 4 years, and if, suddenly, a lot of this infrastructure money, that has come forward during the current administration, reappears, and Massachusetts, the MBTA, is in a position to extend rail into New Hampshire, which they want to do. If we don't have the information ready, we're going to miss out. So I see this $225,000, as a small amount of money to put us in a position to take advantage of the possibility, of the much larger money that would come, not from us, but from the federal government in the future. I think we're just, you know, I think we're doing ourselves a great disservice. So, you know, I would not support this motion.
Alderman Lopez?
So I am generally supportive of commuter rail and all forms of public transportation because I see every day how important they are to people who rely on them for opportunities, for work, for medical appointments. And particularly, I think that is often overlooked when we talk about what would commuter rail bring. Sure, it would potentially bring the ability to connect to different airports and maybe opportunities to apply for jobs and that kind of stuff. It also connect to Massachusetts' healthcare system, which I think is a huge need in the national community. When people suddenly find out they have major healthcare concerns that they need to have the specialists down in Boston see, they also suddenly realize that they're going to have to be going back and forth to visit loved ones and things of that nature every day, like through that commuter system driving, and that's very, very difficult. So on that aspect of commuter rail, I am a very strong advocate. But I would also point out that what appears to be peanuts in this context of the larger gains is also a sizable chunk of the city welfare budget. And we know we have people sleeping out tonight. We know we have people, the warming station isn't online, there isn't enough capacity in all of the programs that are operating right now. So while it's peanuts in one area, it's a huge amount in another. And when we further consider the applications of how these things add up to the taxpayer, I do think we do need to take a little bit of a pause. The way that this has been described to me, and I believe Corporation Counsel can correct me if I'm wrong, this isn't killing commuter rail. This is removing something from a bill that we would pass tonight to allow it to be reproposed and then sent back through the Budget Committee. And yes, it'd have to be another public hearing, but if that could be as soon as the day after Christmas, like, I'll show up, I'll make time, and I'll make sure that there's, opportunity and advocacy for it if the public is in support of it. But I think the underlying issue that was brought forward with this is a bundled service. And none of us like, bundled services when Xfinity says, hey, you have to take cable television if you want to get your internet. We all get stuck paying for that. And while I do think that there might be some other areas of nuance in this bundled package that might be worth looking at, like I had questions about the RFP process for Kronos. I think that commuter rail is one of the sore subjects sticking out. I think it is worth taking it out to show that we aren't just going to rubber stamp a large bundle of different and diverse funding resources. We're going to look at them. But I do think it's a measured approach, and we're not just tearing apart the legislation and saying, okay, well, let's have 15 public hearings. And anybody who wants to come and completely ignore the process or the body running it and just use it for their platform, they can do that 15 times. Because I know we saw some members of the public who stated that intent and absolutely came up in neither opposition nor support of the resolutions. They chose to speak their own needs, and that's allowed for in public comment. I think if we have one or two items that are cut from this, then they still have that chance, but it's a reasonable bite for this board to sit and listen. And it does allow us to have that more close and probing opportunity to say, well, what did exactly we get out of the last infusion of cash that we put into this, and what are the specific benchmarks we can expect? I think that's reasonable due diligence, and I think there's a desire to continue forward with a lot of really good projects that are here, and I would support the amendment just because it's a starting point and it's an authentic stab at saying, okay, well, let's not just accept everything.
Alderman Senate?
Thank you, Madam President. My colleague from Ward 4 stole a lot of my thunder. I'd like to clarify that this is a procedural issue for me more than anything. I may have not picked my words well, but I don't think city staff offered presentations that were lacking. When I say inadequate, I say for the task before us. We talk about the burden of holding 14 public hearings. We didn't even get into committee that night until 9 o'clock at public hearings that were called at 7. Some of the public hearings I've attended are a simple 4-round call for testimony in opposition, testimony in support. I'm not going to win a lot of friends by saying this, but that's what we signed up for. With 14 expenditures we want to make, I guess that's 14 public hearings. In regard to rail, I am supportive of rail. I think it opens the world beyond our front doors. And again, Alderman Lopez made a lot of great points that I think are not usually considered. But I don't think this is the way to go about getting this in. I would like to see this, as my colleague from Ward 9 mentioned, packaged into the fiscal 2026 budget. So I will support the amendment. I think it's a good start.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. And I, too, I guess would have to clarify, I love rail. I would do rail every day of the week if I could. I know some of my colleagues don't want it at all, and I respect that. It is, just as my colleague from Ward 4 and my colleague from Ward 7 said, we jam-packed these all into one resolution, and you're jamming it down our throats. My perception is different than others, and I understand that. But we need to look at each individual one individually. If they probably were all separated out, I'd probably vote for every single one of them, but they weren't. And we are 6 months away from the budget, like my colleague from Ward 9 said. None of this is very pressing that I can see, except for things that are about to fall apart. But the way it was done is I am in disagreement with. And I have the ability to say, let's take one out. You guys don't agree with it, fine, but please don't paint as if I'm against rail, if I'm against Greeley Park, whatever. It is the way it was done, the process.
Alderman Tebow.
I mean, to that point, thank you, Madam President. I mean, to that point, Director Sullivan came in here earlier wearing a woolen winter hat because he has no heat in his office. So there is an HVAC problem here in this. So there are things that are broken that do need to be fixed now, because it ain't getting warmer, as people have said here. It's getting colder. And, I mean, if people can't work in this building because it's too cold, then a lot of the city parts of stuff shut down. So there's definitely some stuff in here that I think is fairly time sensitive. If you put it in the budget for next year, we don't have any HVAC fixed for another whole year. So there is some things that need to be looked at. So I don't think we can just push this all off to next year's budget. Unless some of us want to come in here and work with, Clerk Healy and some of the other, Director Sullivan, Director Cummings, in the cold. So I think there is some things here. In fact, to Alderwoman Kelly's point about rail, yeah, I think if we continue to push that off, which we've already talked about kicking the can on this, down the road year after year after year after year, then we're just never, might as well just, why don't we kill it tonight? So if you're for rail, why don't we kill it tonight? Because that's what's going to happen. And maybe that's what we should do. I don't know. Maybe that's what we should do. But just pushing it off. Let's make a decision right here. Kill it, or let's go with it. But, pushing it for another year doesn't make any sense. At this point, everybody's probably tired of hearing about it. So I think there is things we need to do here, but I personally would keep rail in this package.
Alderman Dowd.
Through you to Corporation Counsel, since this had a public hearing as it stands, and if we pass this amendment to take something out of this, does it have to go back for another public hearing?
I think it was adequately presented at the public hearing. If you recall, those of you who were there or who had an opportunity to view it afterwards, people from the staff explained each project that was proposed, and then the public hearing happened. And so everyone who was here for the public hearing heard about all of the projects that are proposed in the resolution. Therefore, they got an opportunity to speak as to each one. So if you're going to, as the present amendment proposes, to remove one element in its entirety, I think that will not require another public hearing. If you wanted to change certain numbers and spend more on something and less on something else and tinker with it to that extent, then I think another public hearing probably would be required. But I'm speaking hypothetically. I don't think the present motion would require that.
Okay, in that vein, then, if we can have 14 public hearings and go through this whole process again and listen to extraneous information at those public hearings. Or if you have particular items on this list that you don't like, you can make a similar motion, see how they fare. And when we're done going through them, we can take a motion on what's left. If there are particular items on here that people don't want, bring up an amendment to get rid of it entirely, as was just done by Alderman Warren, and take a vote on it.
Alderwoman Kelly?
I just have a follow-on question to the question to Corporation Counsel. You stated that taking one out wouldn't require, what is our threshold for how many of these would suddenly make it?
I think you could take any number of them out, taking the whole project out. As I said before, hypothetically, if you wanted to reduce the dollar amounts of some and increase the dollar amounts of the other, I think that changes what was presented to the public, and they didn't get a chance to comment on that. I think everyone got a chance to comment on each of the projects or each of the items of expenditure. So if any number of those were to be pulled out and others passed as presented, I don't think that would require another public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Can I just follow on the statement? So my only other point on this is that myself and Alderman O'Brien are the liaison to the rail committee. He is not here. He has much more of a depth of knowledge about this. So if we're concerned about taking this out because we don't have enough information, I don't think it's fair to do it without the liaison to that committee who's been doing that for 10 years, something like that. So I've sat in those meetings. There's a ton of information about where we are now and where we've been. Nobody's asked me about it. I would have happily shared what I know, but I just don't think the full board is where we need to be picking and choosing these pieces.
I'm going to go Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you. Through you to Corporation Counsel, I'm not going to make this motion, but it's a question on just the overall resolution. Because I know we do this in budget, and you can't pick through specific line items, but you can make a bottom line cut. I mean, if someone just made a motion and we just cut 2 million from it, and then we just went forward with, and then whatever the balance was, 3.2 million from that, and then that just goes back to the administration, and then we say, well, you wanted 5.2, but we only gave you 3.2. You figure out what you do with it. Can we do that?
My opinion is no.
Okay. Thanks.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Thank you, Madam President. Alderman Sullivan suggested that we return it back to the budget. It seemed like something we should be doing, send it back to the budget. To take out the commuter rail, I can't support that, but returning it back to the budget seemed the wise thing to do, because then we can see every single thing. We can have those line items, and we can still meet after Christmas. So is that something we can do? Because I like that suggestion.
There's a motion on the floor.
The motion is on the floor, right, to
Delete.
delete.
I withdraw my motion, and I will defer to my colleague for the next motion.
So the motion to delete the rail study has been withdrawn.
And my motion is to move it back to the budget committee.
So your motion is to re-refer. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Dowd.
So I hate deferring it to the day after Christmas when they're getting a quorum may be an issue, especially with Budget Committee. And then only motions at the Budget Committee, only members of the Budget Committee can make motions unless they have someone that's not a member, ask a member to do it. And then if we do changes, I would presume that we would do changes to individual items, because I don't know where the line gets drawn when we have to go for a public hearing again. if we do line item cuts at budget, does that, through you to Corporation Counsel, does that eliminate the requirement for further hearing, or is it only if they change dollar amounts?
What I said before still applies. The Budget Committee doesn't make amendments. The Budget Committee recommends to this board amendments, potentially. And the same thing would apply. I believe, given where we stand, eliminating one or more items of expenditure in full would not require another public hearing. But I also believe that if you start tinkering, adding to some, subtracting from others, cutting the bottom line, things of that nature, another public hearing would be required because it so substantially changes what the public was informed of at the time they had an opportunity to be heard. And that doesn't, it doesn't matter whether that is done tonight or is done at a future meeting on recommendations of the Budget Committee or on recommendations of anybody else.
Okay.
That's my opinion, and you're asking me to opine on hypothetical situations that aren't here. It is only an opinion. If someone challenges it and we go to court, it's going to be someone wearing a black robe whose opinions matter.
Okay, I would prefer to call a special budget meeting in early January, where we make sure that we have as many people involved as possible, budget and non-budget. Because I think the 28th could be problematic. And we don't even know now if we're going to have a quorum for budget. If we don't have a quorum, we're not having a meeting. So if the majority feels that we should have more involved in the discussion, I would call a special budget meeting in the first week of January, so that it can be fully discussed, vetted, and go to the next following Board of Aldermen meeting.
Alderman Clemmons?
Through you, can I ask a semi-relevant question to this? My question is this. Through you to Corporation Counsel, let's assume that everything goes through the budget, whatever. Some things get rejected, some things move forward. Or let's assume actually that everything gets rejected. Is the idea that each one of these things could come back on their own possible in this term?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I think there are enough important projects in this piece of legislation that if we had to have 14 public hearings, I would be okay with that. Alderwoman Kelly.
I'm supportive of re-referral. I did want to, and I actually like the idea of a special budget given time constraints with holidays. I just wanted to ask through you to Director Cummings or Director Sullivan if there's anything extremely time sensitive on this list that they're worried about. Like heat.
Any feedback?
They're both.
Director Sullivan.
The only comment that I would make, Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director, is, and I don't believe I'm selfishly lobbying for my own project by saying this, there are some regulatory requirements of the hydro project that do need to move forward. That said, it doesn't sound like the timeline being contemplated this evening will be problematic to those requirements.
Thank you, Director Sullivan.
Thank you. Motion, oh, sorry. Got
Sorry.
that side.
Um,
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. I hope this gives self-reflection for the administration next time to bring one by one, so we don't have this, how do I phrase it? I did not come here thinking I would be potentially a vote to sink the entire thing to get heat for our city employees. Obviously, you see what happens when one person is not well. So this probably would die tonight. But my colleague to my left's motion gives that opportunity for these things to live on, especially if they all get spoken about.
Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't disagree with where you're referring to committee. Like, I go back and forth. So I see the premise of bringing it back to the committee and having the committee decide, but I feel with the amount of projects we've done here, I think it would be more appropriate if if the body would agree to host a special Board of Aldermen meeting and then bring this up. If we're going to talk about, okay, these are very important projects, let's make the motions, let's go through it and come up with the final product, I don't feel that gets done efficiently in the committee level. Just like we did with the exemption money, let's have a special board meeting and let's hack this all apart and come up with that final decision. That way all 15 of us can have a voice, anybody can make any motion they want, and we bring a final product up for a vote. So I'd personally like to see it stay at this level, and then we have a special meeting where we talk about just these projects and this legislation at hand. Thank you.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam President. I mean, one thing, I don't think admonishing the staff is probably the best thing, because I think everybody that's working on these projects to put them in here is doing it in good faith. I don't think anyone's trying to sneak it or do anything weird. We had the public hearing. We went through each line. There was a good presentation. So to Alderman Govea's point, I don't think it should go back to the Budget Committee. We did the work in the Budget Committee. So that's not the issue, in my opinion. It's the issue of taking these things out and and moving them around. Well, if we're doing that, probably not going to be doing it in the budget meeting. We're just going to be talking about these things again. So why don't we have the special Alderman meeting and talk about it there, where everyone has the ability to make an amendment, and everyone has the ability to decide together as a group, vote on it or don't vote on it, as opposed to the 5-person budget committee, if we have 5 people at the next budget committee. That's how I would look at it. And then if we want to start dicing these things up, figuring what's important and what's not important, let's do it.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I agree with that assessment. I had mentioned at the beginning about the Budget Committee, but I think, you hear a good idea, you should go with it. And certainly Alderman Govea's idea of holding a special meeting, I think, is warranted, so.
Okay. Alderman Thibodeau.
If it gets moved to a special Board of Aldermen meeting, that's a two-part question. So we were told that we could pretty much withdraw any of these items and then move it forward if the HVAC system is that important, and if I worked in this building, I would want to be warm as well. Is it possible to strike everything except HVAC and then move the remainder to that special meeting? Is that a possibility?
Would have to be represented.
I have to defer to the attorney.
Yes, but it's complex. You would have to make a motion to separate that out, make it its own resolution. Everything else gets referred back to the Budget Committee or tabled to a special meeting. That separated out new resolution, which we could accomplish by voting to do that, I think that would need a public hearing. And that may not be entirely consistent, but I don't think that the public was informed of that possibility. So I think if that's the way it goes, I would recommend another public hearing.
You all set, Alderman Thibodeau?
Well, then just a follow-up then. If we do go to the special Board of Aldermen meeting, it's still going to be a single entity, right, whether we chop it up or not. And I also was not in favor of the, for lack of a better term, the omnibus structure of the bill. I have 3 items that I would just oppose altogether and one that I would like to see cut, probably in half. Other than that, I think everything else is great. So if we go back to the Board of Aldermen meeting, is it still going to be a single vote, yes or no?
Yep.
Yes.
Well,
Anyone can make a motion to amend as I think I've said, if you strike an entire item of expenditure, I think that would not necessitate having another public hearing on the remainder. But as I said, if you want to add some money to some, take some money away from another, do something that is so different that a court later says, well, the public should have had an opportunity to weigh in on that, that is going to be a problem, because if the resolution as a whole gets disallowed, you're going to have projects in some stage of partial completion that will have to stop, which there are costs involved in anything like that. So when in doubt, have a public hearing. But as I said, I think removing an item of expenditure, or one or more of them, my best judgment, my best opinion is that would not require another public hearing on the remainder.
You all set, Alderman Thibodeau?
Yeah.
Okay, Alderman Moran?
Thank you, Madam President. Just following up from my colleague from Ward 8, not city employees, city employee, one person who made, in my perception to other aldermen's perceptions, maybe a condescending response regarding our request to break it up. The other ones, they're great, but if it happens, I'm going to call them out on it.
Alderwoman Timmons, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I was going to amend my motion to change it to a special board as soon as possible.
Okay. Alderwoman Kelly?
Can I make a suggestion that we have a date specific? I know Donna's gonna have to do a little bit
Donna
of
can
work,
check
but I
her
would love to have
calendar
an
and,
actual date.
It'll be
so
up to
that
her.
People who need to be there, no,
You're looking December or January?
January.
early January.
The week of December 30th. I'm sure you don't want to work on New Year's Eve, but I
Nope.
do have Thursday the 2nd, January 2nd. The following week, I have January 7th, Tuesday, and Thursday, January 9.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is to hold a special Board of Aldermen meeting for the purpose of this piece of legislation, 7th or the 9th. Can I just ask for a show of hands, how many would prefer the 7th? 7th it is. Thank you. So, we still have
What
to
if you phrase it as a motion to table until a special Board of Aldermen meeting to be held on January 7th, 2025?
Okay. Alderman Jettie?
Thank you. So Alderman Sullivan was asked, is there anything that's pressing? And he mentioned one thing, but said no, not really under the time that we're thinking about. He doesn't think it's going to be a problem. But I remember the Hunt Building renovations, being told that there was a grant that we would lose unless we did this. And I just want to make sure that when he said there's no time constraint, that he was thinking of that, and that can wait.
Director Cummings? Yes, what? It can wait? Okay. He's saying it can wait.
Thank you.
Okay. So the motion is to table until a special Board of Aldermen meeting on January 7th.
Exactly.
No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Second reading of R-24-116, relative to the supplemental appropriation of $800,000 of assigned fund balance into Department 128 Risk Management Account 89650, transfer to Property and Casualty Self-Insurance Fund for the purpose of rebuilding a fire truck.
Alderman Dowd.
I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R 24-116 by roll call pursuant to Charter Section 49.
Motion is for final passage. Discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk call the roll?
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
14 yeas, 0 nays.
That motion carries, and Resolution 24-116 is declared duly adopted. Unfinished business ordinances.
Second reading of O-24-035, changing the day of rescheduled Board of Aldermen meetings.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for final passage of O-2435.
Motion is for final passage. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries, and ordinance 2435 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of O-24-038, amended, updating the Welfare Department General Assistance Guidelines.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam President. So I would like to make a motion to amend O-2438 by replacing it with the goldenrod copy of recommended amendments made at the Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee. And I would like to speak to that briefly.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. So the portion of this that we are amending has to do with Section A. It's on the last, it's the last page of the goldenrod copy, and it's Section A 414D. And basically, what we wanted to maintain that the original ordinance had replaced was that an audio recording of the hearing be kept for the for any fair decision hearing. So originally that was stricken because it's not a practice that they adhere to currently. And in the way that this is written still, it says that neither the failure of the hearings officer or the welfare officer to record any audio tape shall invalidate the decision. And we kept that in there sort of as a compromise because I know that there are some aldermen that want to have these audio recordings on every hearing. So the intent was, let's keep this the way this is now and work on a solution in the future that we can have these audio recordings for these hearings indexed into the future. So I would assume that the alderman who had that is going to work with the welfare officer to get that done. And so we should probably expect legislation to further amend this in the future. But we didn't want to table this either because there are important things in here that in particular has to do with how much we give for burial. And we felt it expedient to get the whole thing done so that there's no families or individuals out there who have that burden any longer. So that, long and short of it, that's what this amendment does.
Motion is to amend. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Alderman Timmons.
Yes, move for final passage of O-24-038 as amended.
Motion is for final passage as amended. Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the work done on these changes for the City Welfare Department. There is still a lot to go, and I understand that this particular process is tedious for some reason, but I am encouraged by the changes that were made. I will say that you'd be absolutely surprised how many folks are denied for unvalid reasons, or just not even given an intake and sent to the soup kitchen shelter, or other facilities first, or bridges, or whoever it might be, as a get around to offering state-required assistance. And I think anytime you hear from the City Welfare Department that we deny very few, well, maybe there should be a log that says how many people actually walked in and started the process before being referred, and then told to come back when they got to the soup kitchen where there was no support or other various reasons. And that's only from working in the field. It's nuanced. I don't expect many other folks to understand that nitty-gritty details, but it's happening. My colleague from Ward 4 is probably better suited to understand that than I am, because he's much more humanitarian than I am. But it would do well for city welfare to not do that. Serve the person that walks in as required by state law, and then refer them to an agency if they don't meet your requirements.
Motion is for final passage as amended. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Resolution 24-114 is declared duly adopted as amended. Oh, I'm sorry.
Second reading of O-24-039, no parking on a section of the west side of Quincy Street.
Alderman Lopez.
I'd like to make a motion for final passage of O-24-039.
Motion is for final passage. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries, and ordinance 2439 is declared duly adopted. New business resolutions.
First reading of R-24-117, relative to the acceptance of grant funds pursuant to Contract Amendment Number 2 in the amount of $220,000 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services into the Public Health Infrastructure Grant Activity.
Additional sponsors: Alderwoman Timmons, Alderman Moran, Alderman Senate, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Clee, and myself, Alderwoman Kelly. Given its first reading, I will assign that to the Human Affairs Committee.
First reading of R-24-118, relative to the supplemental appropriation of $120,836.27 of fiscal year 2025 unanticipated revenue into Fund Number 7024 Opioid Abatement Expendable Trust Fund.
Additional sponsors: Alderman Moran, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Senate, Alderman Clee, Alderman Dowd, Alderwoman Kelly, and myself. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Budget Review Committee and schedule a special Board of Aldermen public hearing on Monday, December 23rd, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber. New business ordinances.
None.
Period for general public comment. We have 3 people signed up. Linda Murray. Name and address for the record, please.
It is Linda Murray, 3 Zelwood Street, Ward 6. I am here tonight in pursuant to a restriction, a ban that has been placed on my street. I have a small street that has 5 houses, 6 driveways, and just recently, on November 13th, we have a ban restricting half of the street parking due to one resident request. It started March of this year. There was a conversation in August of this year. Evidently, there was no particular vote, but the alderman and the city engineer decided to implement this ban, even though at least half of the residents, because like I said, there's actually 6 driveways, opposed this ban. I would like to propose it to be removed, to be reviewed and removed, or if it cannot be removed, The reasoning that was given to me was that it was for safety reasons. If there was parking on both sides of the street, it impeded emergency vehicles to get through to either one of the houses. Well, when I proposed why Fowle Ave and Pratt Street was not part of this ordinance, because you have to get to Zellwood, you can get to Zell Street only by Pratt and Pratt and Fowle, I was told it wasn't part of the conversation. So my initial feeling is that this was a target from a neighbor, which is moot, it's not your problem. My problem is that this was voted on or decided by the alderman and the city engineer, and has been implemented against my wishes and against the wishes of another resident, who are the only two residents that are directly impacted by this particular ordinance. I have a tandem drive, four cars. My neighbor has a tandem drive, 4 cars. So in order to get to your first car, you need to remove the other 3. And having the restricted parking is a problem. And we haven't even gotten to the winter time yet, where will be snow piles and, on both sides of the street. So I want to raise this officially as a concern and a problem. I've had conversations with my alderman, and I believe I've sent it to the entire group here that I'm opposed to it, and I would like it amended. I would like it removed, or at least if you're going to use the justification of safety for emergency vehicles, you need to extend it to Fowle Ave and Pratt Street.
Thank you.
All right, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I don't know what the next process is for me to proceed with this, but I do want it on record, and I definitely want someone to look into it.
Okay, your time is up, but.
Oh, sorry, I didn't understand. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Paula Johnson?
Good evening, Paula Johnson again. I want to talk about the rail. As a person, as you can tell by my accent that I still have, I grew up in New York City. I lived on the train every day of my life, to and from Manhattan. Okay? Trains are easy. Does anybody, when I was on the board, I talked about the train. Who's going to be the transit police to control it? At your station, who's going to be at your station to make sure it's safe? If we have a problem now with homeless and addicts, they're going to be hanging at your station. And if there's no facility for them to use, not a problem, at the train station in broad daylight, and that's going to be their bathroom facility. New York City subway station, I can't tell you what it smelled like. I grew up there, I know what the trains are all about. This is a boondoggle that's going to happen with our tax dollars, because it's going to come from us, we the people, our tax dollars, to facilitate this. And I'm tired of paying for all this. You're bringing people in, it sounds all good in theory, but who is going to maintain this? Who? It's not going to be the federal government, it's not going to be Amtrak, it's not going to be Massachusetts, they might pay to bring the rail in. Who is going to maintain this day after day, year after year with police and everything else? It's going to be we, the taxpayers, more on our tax bill year after year after year. And if it fails, who's going to pay for the failure? We, the people. So I'm not for this. I would take a very hard look at this, because if you want to know, take a look at Massachusetts rail system. Is that doing good? Take a look at New York. Take a look at Washington. Look at what they're doing for people to get on the subways. A man is slapping people. It's not safe. Do you think this is going to be 100% safe? I'm going to tell you it's not going to be 100% safe. You're going to have transit police all over. So I would take a look at this.
1 minute.
Again, grew up, the accent is New York. And, always to this day, look over my shoulder as I walk, because I grew up in the big city. Also, I left a message for risk management because I wanted to get some information. She's on the 5-day clock, really almost done, because I left her 2 voice messages. I still consider that's part of the right to know law. I shouldn't have to ask like this. I just wanted to know, since Elm Street is becoming a warming station, I want to know, where does the liability fall on the city overdoses, fights and injuries, stabbings, homeless who become ill could have COVID and other contagious viruses. I'd like to know that all personal items are separate when they come in. Are they frisked to make sure that they're not having any drug paraphernalias or needles in their socks, etc., and what other unusual activities? We, the citizens, can be hit up for a big liability on this, not depriving anybody, but we shut down the school because it was unsafe for our students. I want to know what is our liability. I've asked risk management, and I'm asking it again in public, so I hope that I'll get this before my 5 days is up. Thank you very much, and I really think we should have 5 minutes at least. You know, we're the public that pays for your $9,000 salary. Stipend, excuse me.
Laurie Ortolano?
I'm going to run my clock and try to give me a cue, but I'm going to try and watch it. Gloria Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. I recently learned that Mayor Donchis approved the legal fees for the 2022 defamation lawsuit brought against Melba Moran in his personal capacity, not as an alderman. He approved the legal fee contract to pay the legal bills for Mr. Moran and his company in a formal complaint to the Office of Professional Licensure brought by another citizen. My attorney has tried to work through Mr. Moran's attorney to get information on his personal and company insurance to cover the costs. Most likely he has a personal umbrella policy and a business policy that would handle the cost of these claims. Mr. Moran and his attorney have refused to provide that information. These policies would provide costs in support of any judgment. There is no reason the taxpayer should be paying his legal fees and costs when he is insured. Based on a deposition taken last May, the mayor reached out to Mr. Moran almost immediately after a radio interview to discuss covering the cost of his legal fees should a defamation suit be filed. The mayor, who is a liar, should have asked a lawyer, should have asked Mr. Moran whether he was personally insured. Mr. Moran knew the city would cover his legal costs. Why should I and the rest of the taxpayers be responsible for paying his personal legal bills? The court, in its order, determined that Mr. Moran's statements made in the chamber regarding me giving out predatory vibes like crazy and doing oppositional research on children were not made in his official capacity as an alderman. Therefore, he didn't have immunity. The mayor's actions are a significant ethics violations because they involve taxpayer money, and an attorney, Mayor Donchis, authorized it. In June 2024, city officials estimated to the board that this year's continued costs of Ortolano's lawsuits would be $1.2 million. What's the city's estimate of the cost to continue paying for Mr. Moran's lawsuit? I would say about $200,000. The city has paid $50,000 to Mr. Moran's attorneys. There will be an appeal to Supreme Court based on the defamatory statements of labeling me a predator.
1 minute.
That appeal will cost at least $100,000. The matter needs to be brought before the city's ethics committee to determine why the mayor would offer to pay the individual and personal legal bills of a board member that was not related to his official duties as an alderman, especially if there's insurance and Mr. Moran refuses to disclose that insurance. The mayor and Mr. Moran struck with this sweetheart deal. What was struck is abusing taxpayers. One must wonder why the legal firm who wrote the contract between the city and
30
Mr. Moran
seconds.
and does work for the city would accept payment under these unethical actions. No taxpayer should be funding this. Mr. Moran, with his well-vocalized newfound wealth, can certainly afford to handle his own legal expenses. I'm requesting the board investigate the misuse of public funds, develop a policy, and reverse the mayor's decision to have taxpayers cover his substantial personal legal fees. I had another paragraph, but I can see I'm going to run out of time. And I have the two contracts that were signed last year, and I would like to submit these to the board to put on its record. I'm going to just see this. Thank you.
Remarks by members of the board. I'll start on this side tonight.
I'm good.
All set.
Alderman Jettie?
So, are we having a meeting on Christmas Eve?
We are not. The meeting will be on December 26th,
The day after Christmas?
Boxing Day.
the day after Christmas.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to just extend holiday wishes to all out there. I will not be at the meeting after Christmas, so but I want to wish everybody happy holidays and That's it. Be safe. Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
I would also like to wish happy holidays to everyone. I would also like to make kind of a public service announcement. National Veterans Promise for the last couple of years has been decorating the trees in the Veterans Program over on Factory Street. They've been decorating the common areas with Christmas trees. They've been putting out Christmas decorations for veterans to then decorate their own halls in their own unique style. It's a big building, so asking anybody to decorate it completely by themselves would be a large task, but doing it this way brings the veterans on the floor together. It gives them a project to work on, and it gives them a way to kind of decorate their own living space. The decorations from previous years were misplaced this past year, so all they have are Christmas lights. So National Veterans Promise has bins. There should be one outside the mayor's office. There's some at various downtown locations. When people are going through doing their own holiday decorating, they inevitably find, oh, I don't need this anymore, or I used to use this, but I don't have the space for it. If you have any of that kind of stuff, National Veterans Promise would love to connect it to the Delenas House at Harbor Care and make sure that they're able to decorate for the holidays.
Alderman Thibodeau?
Yes, as the alderman for Zellwood, I just want to, for the record, that the item that the constituent was speaking of did come before the full board. I'm assuming you guys all figured that out. And I will reach out to that constituent to reiterate that it did go before the full board.
Thank you. Alderman Moran?
Thank you, Madam President. Just my non-response to the response. Of course, I deny the allegation as alleged. That person is the plaintiff, and that is their opinion of, I don't recall being sued in a personal capacity, and I don't believe there was anything from a judge that said so. But neither here or there. I deny the allegations as alleged, and I look forward to eventually getting to a trial date to settle the matter, and that interlocutory appeal was denied. Other than that, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to everyone.
Alderwoman Timmons?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want the public to know there is a Warming Center open at 50 Ash Street, and that's New Fellowship Church, Monday through Friday from 8 to 3. However, I believe in warming centers, and I think we should do every single thing in any place that can allow us to use their facilities for warming anybody to get them out of the cold, including Elm Street. That's the place we need to have those people go. I don't think we should be out there in the cold freezing. It was extremely cold coming here. And so the warming centers, even at Elm Street, is a welcome relief for us. Also, just to let everybody know, the Board of Health meets tomorrow at 12:30, room 208 here at City Hall.
Okay. I just want to let the public know that the tax rate has been set. So that information is available. Committee announcements. Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, the BIDA meets, Business and Industrial Development Authority, in room 208, right down the hall here.
Okay. Alderman Lopez.
Human Affairs Committee meets on Monday, and it's kind of a coincidence because we were supposed to have them last month, but I didn't give them enough notice. The Delenas House will actually be presenting, so if people want to learn more about that program that I referenced earlier today, that's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity to see what a low-barrier emergency shelter might look like.
Anyone else?
Over here.
Oh, Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. Planning and Economic Development is on Tuesday, the 17th. It should be a joint PEDC and Human Affairs, where we'll also follow up on what's going on with the warming station.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you. It's a bit off, but in January 6th, the Personnel Committee will also be hearing the Board of Health candidates, which is unusual, but it's going to be an interesting conversation. So I invite anyone on the board who would like to be there or anyone who's interested in that vacancy. We'll be taking it up then.
Alderman Clemmons.
So I have a question, sort of unrelated to any announcement, but through you to Attorney Bolton. How is it possible that the Board of Health can meet with only 2 members?
If they have 2 members, that's a quorum and they can meet.
Okay, thank you.
If they don't have 2 members, it presents a significant problem.
Okay, happy holidays to everyone. Alderman Clements, do I have a motion?
Yes, motion to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 9:35 PM. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Alderman Clements.